This is a banded shoulder overhead press. Now it can be a band like I have here. It can also be a belt. The elasticity isn't so much relevant as is something to be able to apply a lot of resistance into. So even if you had a belt, something that wasn't stretchy, as long as you get the width, just about the width of your ribs, maybe a little bit further outside of that for you to really pull your arms apart and push into or push out into, it would be perfectly fine. If you do have bands, excellent. You can use these as well. It's going to be tiring no matter what you use. So for here, overhead press motion is simply this motion here. You want to keep your spine flat against the floor. That is one advantage in this position, is it really does help you keep your spine nice and flat and rigid. So first, loop the band around your wrists, typically at the palms. Bring your elbows in to about where your ribs are, okay? They're gonna stay locked at that position. You don't want your elbows to come in at all. Your elbows are gonna stay about as wide as your ribs. Then you'll notice your hands are probably a little closer together if you're using a band. You're going to rotate outward through your shoulders to get your wrists in line with your elbows, okay? So here you pretend that you're at the bottom of an overhead press motion. Your elbows are tucked in up next to your ribs and your wrists are pulled out in line with your elbows. You keep those wrists pulled out in line with your elbows as you punch your fists up overhead all the way till your arms are fully straight. Keep that back flat against the floor. Pull it back down to the start position and continue. This is a continuous tension set. I'm not worried about how many reps you get. I'm worried about you maintaining tension and work for the duration of the time. Now, two things typically want to happen when you get tired. Your elbows either flare out or your wrists cave inward, okay? Work really hard to keep neither of those things from happening. Elbows in line with your ribs, wrists in line with the elbows. I know it gets hard really fast. So your time under tension is never going to be super duper long. But this is the motion. Back nice and flat and braced. Elbows in line with ribs, wrists in line with elbows. Until your set is finished. If you have really good control over your spine and you can keep it braced without it doing a bunch of arching, you can also perform this sitting upright, whether that's in a chair or sitting on the floor cross-legged or with your legs straight out in front of you. I will say between the three I just mentioned, this one's probably the most challenging. So I'm going to demonstrate it for you from this cross-legged position. Everything's the same as if you were laying on the floor. Wrapped around the hands, elbows braced about rib width apart, and then you're going to pull those wrists out to get in line with your elbows. And from here, you're just producing an overhead press motion. Keep the belly super tight to keep your ribs and back from arching, all the way up, all the way down. Don't let those elbows flare. Don't let the wrists collapse. Continuous time under tension. You should feel a lot of work in the shoulders and the upper back.